talking some UFC 305, a PGA prop. We've got Carmine Bianco on at the end of this show talking some soccer, and in between some Major League Baseball with Gianni the Greek. So it's a loaded show on Friday as we head into the weekend. I am Steve Merrill, filling in for the Prez, but don't you worry, Teddy Covers. He'll be back on Monday. At least that's what the rumors say. But in the meantime, my co-host Teddy Covers is here with me Friday to guide us through the show. And let's get started with the prop master, Andy Lang. And Andy, I want to mention as we throw it to you that it is a buy 3, get 7-day special still available through this weekend. It's a great special. Works out to less than $10 a play, $10 a day. That's about $5 a play or even less for every and all capper at WagerTalk.com. And I always recommend diversifying your portfolio. And Andy Lang, you're a good guy to diversify with because you do a lot of different sports than just baseball, basketball, and football. 7 days for the price of 3, Andy. Not a bad deal.
It's the best deal, especially, going into the weekend. And, the other nice thing about these deals is, if you don't have a play on a certain day, that day gets extended to the, to the end of the 7 days. So like that's happened a few days this week. I had a couple days, didn't see anything we liked on the board. So that gets extended to the end. So yeah, we don't run these specials a whole lot. So going into the weekend where we have PFL tonight, which I have plays in. We have UFC 305 tomorrow, which I have plays in. We have a golf tournament going on, which I have plays on. So buy 3 days, get 7 is absolutely the way to go at it this afternoon.
Let's talk some action for the weekend. I'm going to start with some UFC, as you were talking about Kenan Song and Ricky Glenn. Let's talk about them. Who do you like in this matchup? And I hear there's a new theory. We got fade the baby theory. Let's talk about fading the side hustle, because that's another one. Makes perfect sense. You're talking about guys with distractions or women with distractions. Talk to me about this fight.
Yeah, this has been one that's done really well. Over the years, we've been able to fade a guy who was a photographer and fighting was a side hustle. We've been able to fade a realtor where fighting was a side hustle. Just recently, there was a guy that runs an acai berry company, and he fought in UFC to promote that company. This happens more often than you would think, and we love betting against these guys. So Ricky Glenn is 35 years old. He's been around the UFC for a long time. He had a break after 2021, and when you're not getting fights, you're not getting paid to fight. You have to do other things for money, right? Makes sense. So Ricky Glenn went out and got his plumbing license, became a plumber. But the itch got to him, and he needed to scratch that itch. So he took a couple fights in 2023. And what happened? He got knocked out in the first round in both of them. Chrysios Giagos knocked him out in the first round, and Drew Dober knocked him out in the first round. So now Ricky Glenn has moved to the middle of nowhere, Iowa, where he is attempting to open up the only jiu-jitsu gym within 100 miles of middle of the nowhere, Iowa. There's a lot of funny things about that. First off, Ricky Glenn is not known for his jiu-jitsu, and he's opening up a gym where there's like no population. So this is a guy that's just kind of struggling to find his place in life right now. And I think this is probably going to be his last UFC fight as he finishes off his contract. So we're fading Ricky Glenn, and you've got Kenan Song, who is a full-time UFC fighter. Now, Kenan Song has lost 3 out of 4, but he lost to Ian Gary, which is a pretty good performance. He knocked Ian Gary down in that fight. He lost to Max Griffin, and he lost to Kevin Giussette. These guys are really good fighters. In between that, he beat a nice young and up-and-coming prospect, Rolando Bedoya, and Song is just going to be too quick on the feet. It wouldn't surprise me if he knocked him out. It's a little bit juicy. It's like minus 192. But when we're fading a guy who only fights when UFC calls while he's trying to figure out other jobs and other careers to go into, it's a perfect fade spot. So we're going to take Kenan Song to win. I can't quite get to the window on winning by knockout, even though Ricky Glenn's been knocked out in the first round in his last 2 fights, because Kenan Song's much more volume than he is power. But Kenan Song should go ahead and take the win on this pretty easily.
So I'm curious about, I'm just looking at the lines for UFC this weekend. I'm seeing minus 350 favorites, minus 250 favorites, minus 750 favorites, minus 1,200 favorites. And this guy's priced less than $2 against, you're talking about a fade the side hustle, a guy who's been knocked out badly in recent fights and a guy who's 35 years old and doing this as a side gig. So my first question is, what's wrong with the favorite? Why isn't this why isn't the chalk minus 300, minus 500, minus 1,000 in this fight? What's the flaw here for the guy we're trying to back?
I mean, Kanan Song has lost 3 out of 4 on paper. That doesn't look good. He's 34 years old, so, he's not exactly the youngest guy on the roster, but he's just better. And honestly, Teddy, I think Kanan Song should be much closer to minus 300. He's also just not that sexy of a guy to bet on. This is UFC 305. We're in Australia. They've got a bunch of Australian fighters on the card. So those guys in much more exciting fights are going to get the money and get the attention. But as we always say, we like to look at some of the fights that are not talked about a whole lot. And I think the value is absurdly low on Kanan Song.
Andy, I think another good fade angle just for UFC in general might be finishing out your 5-fight deal, maybe, right? I mean, that's kind of what this is all going to. You're like, why is this guy fighting still? He's got one more fight on his deal, right? So I think that's another angle that often comes into play with a lot of these that you're talking about. But I love it. It's the fade, the side hustle theory, as we're fading Ricky Glenn in the middle from nowhere, Iowa. In this corner from the middle of nowhere, Iowa, Ricky Glenn. Sounds like a NASCAR. Maybe he'll try stock car racing. He can promote his company through that as well. All right, let's go to PGA, another under-the-radar sport, Andy, that you do quite well in, and a little bit of a line move on a second-round score prop that you want to talk about, the St. Jude Championship this week.
Yeah, so we've been doing really good on these individual round score props, and I'm taking a look at Sung J M. This was at 68.5 earlier. It's just moved to 67.5, and I would take him under. If you can find 68.5, absolutely play that. If it's 67.5, just lower it a little bit to maybe a 1% play. So Sung J M only shot -1, so that would be a 69. So we need him to shoot -3, we'll call it today. Here's the thing with Sung J M. Sung J M has been on a tear. He's been a top 15 machine, and yesterday was just not a good round for him. He only hit 35% of his fairways. That was tied for 63rd in a field of 70 players. So he was awful off the tee. His driving distance was 64th. So he wasn't, not only was he not hitting the ball long, he wasn't hitting it very accurate. His putting was really good, though. He was 6th in the field in putting. His around the green was 64th. Basically, what I'm betting on is that Sung J M is going to regress back to the mean in a positive way. He's going to get his driving fixed. And when your accuracy is better and you're landing the ball in the fairway, your distance is going to be better. His putting should be fine. And I've been watching these scores this morning, and the course is playing super easy this morning. You've got guys, Sam Burns is 6 under, Hovland is 7 under, Robert McIntyre's 4 under, Matsuyama's 3 under through 7. These guys are tearing up this course. There's no wind. It is very hot, but it didn't seem to bother the guys yesterday. I'm just banking on Sung J M to get back to his normal form where he should push for a top 15 finish here. If he improves that driving accuracy, I have no doubts he'll get to -3 or lower.
Do you worry at all about the regression in putting? You know, yesterday he had a bad day driving and a great day putting. If he has a great day driving and a bad day putting today, or even a mediocre day putting, you may not cash this. Is that something that that concerns you at all for this fight?
Yeah,
for this round.
Well, if he doesn't shoot -3, there'll be some people that want to fight me. Yeah, of course. If he doesn't putt well, yeah, absolutely. Here's the thing, Teddy. These greens are easy. They're not very fast. Like you get on greens at the U.S. Open where they're lightning fast, and you can see one guy be number 1 in putting and then number 80 in putting the next day. Or you get to these courses with huge greens with tons of hills and mounds, and over in Europe you got a lot of those. And yeah, you could have a big change in putting. These greens are pretty flat. They're small. So if you land the ball on the green, you're going to have a good run at it. So I'm just, yeah, of course, if he sucks at putting, yeah, I'll lose this one. So not every play is perfect, but I'll just bank on him continue to putt well and to drive the ball better than yesterday.
And I've got a second follow-up on a golf prop, which I'm impressed with myself for thinking about. But I'm curious, like how much attention you said there are all these low scores already today that that everyone's rolling. Like, is that a legitimate part of the handicap? Like the course is easier, like way easier today than it would be yesterday, or if you're playing I know sometimes you come on like the weather conditions are coming in the afternoon. The late golfers are screwed compared to the early golfers. Is this one of those type of scenarios where it's if the course are good, just bet everyone under or bet a bunch of unders?
Yeah, I'm really looking at the wind That's the biggest thing. When I'm looking in the morning, I'm going, how is the wind affecting? Like, is it blowing hard? Are players struggling on certain holes where the wind's blowing the ball all over the place? And it doesn't look like the players are struggling very much with the wind. I've done really well with watching the morning guys and then playing the afternoon guys based on watching it. And it's been a fairly new market. Teddy, they used to only release these individual round scores on the majors. This is new this year, where every single tournament, they're giving us these individual round scores. So I haven't talked about them in years past because they haven't been available, but they've been a really, really nice addition for client plays, for bankroll. And yeah, I'm finding a real advantage watching the morning guys and figuring out how the afternoon's going to play. But all signs point to an easy afternoon for the conditions out there.
A great insight from Andy Lang, because it's funny. I was actually asking about the same thing, Andy, on the way out. Teddy and I both kind of noticed when you said, the course is playing really easy today, and I know this line has dropped from 68.5 down to 67.5. So, I mean, is this something you're seeing in the markets where this probably isn't the only golfer whose odds dropped today, correct?
Correct. We put out Tommy Fleetwood last night for clients at 68.5. Wake up this morning at 67.5. So there's a really good reason to jump on board. With the buy 3 days, get 7 days special, because you get notified when all these plays come out. And yes, the books are seeing what I'm seeing. Basically, everyone's number is dropping, or at least the juice is. Guys that were 68.5 at minus 115 last night, now they're 68.5 at minus 160. So the books are adjusting, but there's still enough room to get some value out of it.
Yeah, it's funny. It's basically an in-game line. The guys haven't started yet, but the contest has started. So it'd be like playing a guy coming off a bench in an NBA game. The game has already started, so this is basically in-game betting, and that's why the lines are moving, even though they haven't hit their first tee shot. So it's excellent insight from Andy Lang. And once again, Teddy and I do baseball, basketball, and football. Andy's talking UFC 305 and PGA. It's a great way to diversify your portfolio, and that buy 3 days, get 7 days special is good for every capper at WagerTalk.com. Teddy covers, myself, Steve Merrill, Andy Lang. So why not save and win big with multiple cappers? Andy, what else you got going on this weekend?
It really is just a great way to take advantage of these plays. We have PFL tonight. That starts around 6 o'clock Eastern time. We are in play for that. And then we have UFC 305 tomorrow. We already have plays posted for that. We'll have golf plays throughout the weekend as well. We're plus 113 units for 2024. We're really having just the dream year. We're on a nice 6-2 MMA run in the short term. So all sports have been firing on all cylinders, especially UFC and PFL. And actually, we swept the PFL card last event. So we're riding high on our PFL record and UFC record as well. But by far, best deal, buy 3 days, get 7 free, wt.buzz/AL.
And speaking of cylinders, Andy and I started with the Motorsports Show 4 years ago here on the channel, and Wager Talk's about to have their 10th anniversary next week, I believe. So keep in mind, we'll have some special promos coming up next week as well. And also, I don't want to shortchange Andy Teddy. He covers the main sports also, football, baseball, basketball, hockey, with props, of course, stuff that we're not doing. And he has 2 free NFL futures on his page right now, player props, NFL future player props for free right now on his page. Check out those free plays from all of us daily at wagertalk.com. Did the MLB first pitch an hour ago with Dan Alexander and Brian Leonard. That's on live at 11 a.m. Eastern every weekday here. So check out that replay for a lot of baseball after the show. And Teddy, Brian mentioned the Dave Cokin dinner on the show, but we didn't get a chance to talk about it. So I wanted to get your take on that as well.
Yeah, sure. Last night, it really was a beautiful dinner, commemorating the life of Dave Cokin. It was at Mastriani's here in Las Vegas. If you don't know, Cokin was a staple on the daily radio, on, terrestrial radio here in Vegas, ESPN radio and Fox Sports, 20 plus years. He had a show for, at least that, I think. And Mastriani's, where we went to dinner last night, they were a long-time sponsor. One of the jokes we always do, I had a buddy, when I would go on with Cokin in the afternoons, he'd go, get him off track, get him to talk about Mastriani. So I make it like I talk about the Dallas Cowboys defense and try to compare it to Mastriani's. I get Cokin somehow to find some connection just to make my buddy laugh. But, the public had a chance to say goodbye at Oasis last Saturday night to Dave. And last night it was the insiders, all kinds of cool guys. The guys, Brian Leonard, Marco D'Angelo, Dave Sherapan was there. Kelly Stewart flew in, Kelly in Vegas. Johnny Detroit flew in for it. The Wager Talk CEO, Rick Alec, was there. Jim Feist and his wife, Roz, was there. had other radio and TV guys, T.C. Martin, the voice of the LV Aces, Scott Spritzer's done ESPN Fox here in Vegas for years. And it was great. You know, we laughed, we cried, we told Cokin stories. And not just betting stories. Cokin is a human. Cokin cuddling under a blanket with Bo Derek, his famous stories from the 80s, or talking Mayweather and Tyson in the 90s and all that. And, of course, he had his awards, Cokin, the Nevada Broadcaster of the Year, the National Sports Broadcaster Hall of Fame. It really was a beautiful dinner. And, of course, it got partially spoiled by becoming a really freaking frustrating preseason for me. Like the Patriots last night on the money line. And let's put it this way. I've had 2 losses on 2 of the 3 last-minute drives blowing fourth quarter leads with teams ahead on the money line. Frustrating. It is what it is. As Cokin would say, I'm 0-0 today. Let's go right back at him. But really was a special dinner last night. Miss you, Dave, and thanks for the memories, buddy. Back to you, Steve.
Teddy, I got to ask you, man. You got to tell that. I'm not familiar with the Bo Derek cuddling under a blanket story from the 80s, so can you give us a quick recap of that one?
It was fight night at Caesars. Cokin was there near the front. It was very cold. There was someone under a blanket. He said, "Can I share it with you?" Yes, and I believe it was Bo Derek.
He initiated it. That's fantastic.
Yeah, and Bo Derek in the 80s when she was, as big a star as there was.
Yeah, Dave Cokin, sneaky ladies man, I have a feeling, throughout his years. So that's a great story right there from the dinner last night. So thank you for sharing that with us. And once again, I think of Dave a lot still on a daily basis, doing the baseball show just an hour ago. I did a lot of TV with him on the baseball show the last few years when I joined WagerTalk as well. So some special memories there. That's Teddy Covers. And let's bring in Gianni the Greek, talk about another insider from the Vegas area. Johnny, welcome to the show. Let's talk some baseball, my man. We haven't done any baseball on this show here today, and I know you got to play with once upon a time. It's funny, Dan Alexander on the baseball show said, "Steve, your Washington Nationals." I go, "They weren't last night. I had the Phillies run line. I had the Phillies team total over in a free play video. I'm neutral." But what are you doing with this Nationals-Phillies game tonight on Friday?
Yeah, I'm going to hit the total in this one. I did coming in last week. I think I gave out 2 baseball, so I said, let me stick with baseball since a lot of MMA this weekend, but I'm still working on those cards. I went under here. The group, I always tell my subscribers, and I do in the steam room, I always isolate all my leans, strongest leans the night before. So then as the plays come in for the groups that I move, I can see if anything comes into stuff that I agree with or conflict with, and then I make my decisions. Make a long story short, I like the under in the Washington Philly. They came in under 9.5. I bet it immediately. Went to fire for subscribers. I see that it's moving to 9. Another group hits me at under 9, so we're safe there. Get under 9.5 if you can. Under 9, still good at even money. So that's what I gave it out to grade at. But I'm sure a lot of my guys were able to get under 9.5. And the reason's simple. I think there's a lot of recency bias here. But if you look at the total, it's one of the highest totals between these 2 teams. And here's what I mean. You look over the last 10 games for the Washington Nationals. Not a single total has been listed higher than 9. Did it close higher than 9? Look at the Phillies. Same thing. Only one of their last 10 totals listed higher than 9. Look at the series between these 2. They played 7 games already. No total has even been listed above 8. We were looking at an opener of 9.5 here. It obviously was too high. That's why I took some steam under. And we went under 9 as well. I think it sets up nicely for, key number. As long as you're still getting even money and not having to lay any kind of vig to go under, I think it's still a good bet. If you got to lay like minus 105 or so, I think you're better off passing and waiting for a better position. You never want to bet from a position of weakness. And if you're taking a second, third, fourth number, that's usually what you're doing.
I'm going to ask you, Johnny, when you're playing these games, are you a guy that's going to list starters in a spot like
Always.
this? Is this an action wager for you? How do you play that?
Yeah, I always list, Teddy. It's just out of like force of habit, I think. Because I broke in as a runner and I was always list. That's what I was always told. List. So it just became automatically. As soon as I went to the window, I would say, 978 listed pitchers, 927 listed pitch. Like I would always list pitchers. So I just continued doing it because I figured if men that were already winning when I was a losing bettor were doing this, then I probably should follow what they're doing. And I just continued doing it. I'm sure sometimes it's cost me, but it's almost like in Blackjack when someone does the wrong thing sitting next to you and you're pissed because they ruined it for the table. But we never remember the time when they did the wrong thing and they won for the table. Those kind of balance out those mistakes. And I think here it kind of does as well when I'm like, damn, I shouldn't have, I could have won that if I didn't list pitchers. But I think long term, it's probably the smarter thing because most of the handicap in baseball, I think, is based on starting pitching. At least from the public perception, I think it's more heavily than at least the sharper bettors. But I've just learned to always list pitchers, and I just continue doing it.
And I want to ask you a quick Blackjack follow-up, if I could. When you play Blackjack, you usually play, because you're someone that's plays at a fairly high level, to put that mildly, in terms of your knowledge of the game. Do you play heads up against a dealer, or do you play at a full table?
Great question. One-on-one. I'm looking for one-on-one, Teddy. In fact, I had that problem last week. I was in Florida, and we were at Seminole Hard Rock, and I couldn't find a table with less than 2 people. So I'm like, let's go back up. Let's not play because it's going to just kill time for me. I don't even care about what they're doing. It's if I go one-on-one with a dealer and I find a quick dealer, I could get 200 hands an hour. 150 to 200 hands an hour. Once you add a second person, all of a sudden that cuts me down to 100, maybe 50 hands because they start talking, they're ordering drinks, they're slowing down the game. I want one-on-one with the dealer. Just keep dealing me cards. So if I could get, like I said, a quick dealer, put me on third base, deal me 200 hands an hour, and nobody bother me. Usually that's what I'll do. I even lay out packs of cigarettes so they know I don't even smoke cigarettes, but just so they know if you sit here, the probability is you're going to be smelling smoke, and that usually scares people away. So that's what I'll do.
That's fantastic. Yeah. That's what I hate more about casinos than anything. You know, they got rid of smoking here in Virginia about 10, 15 years ago, and I can't stand 2 minutes of it anymore. It used to not bother me for 5 hours.
Just bring packs of cigarettes, put it on the table brilliant. Next to you. No one wants to sit down. Trust me.
I love it. That's fantastic. Let me ask you, I got to follow up on this Blackjack then.
Keep coughing.
That's fantastic also. What do you look, I mean, can you find an edge still with Blackjack when they're cutting off like a third of the shoe? I mean, what kind of, are you playing multiple decks? Yeah, I mean, I know,
you nailed it. I'm 90%, I'm playing double deck. Now it's almost 100%, I'm playing double deck. As long as they're dealing me 1.5 decks about, I'll beat the game. Now, obviously, the deeper penetration, the better. I found good ways of how to get, as long as they don't have the cut already in the shoe, like some casinos have it where it's already there. They just put the cut card there where it's set, you're screwed. I like to find dealers where they put the cut card. Here's what you do. I'm going to give out a secret now I've never given away. This was been saved for the book. Here's what you do. Here's what you do. You want to get more of a shuffle. One time only, I'm going to share this. Everybody, when you see the guy shuffle for the first time, here's what you say to him. Oh, wow, you thank God. You must be an experienced dealer. They look at you and say, what are you talking about? Say, it never fails. Say, every time a guy's coming out of school, all they want to do is practice shuffling. So they always put the cut card near the front. I'm like, and I end up getting 5 hands in, and I got to watch the guy shuffle for hours when I just want to gamble. So then they start feeling like, oh, you're looking at them as elite, professional dealers. They could put the cut card way in the back. They're not here to practice the shuffle. So you start stroking them and you start seeing them putting the cut card a little further back, a little further back, a little further back, as you're telling them this is what the professionals do, the high level dealers that aren't here to practice shuffling and nonsense like that. And they start doing it for you, slowly moving that cut card back. Works every time because you're telling them this is what the amateurs do. This is what the professionals do. Are you an amateur or professional? Subconsciously, they're going to do what the professional does, not what the amateur. Well, you've already set as the amateur move.
It's just like if you're trying to anchor a price, when you're negotiating, as soon as you're like, oh yeah, the real guys do it this way. Makes a ton of sense, Gianni.
Yep.
Let's talk a little more MLB for today. Brewers Guardians, the game you have on your mind. Tell us what you want to do with Milwaukee and Cleveland.
For me, it was pretty simple. I liked Milwaukee when I first saw this matchup because, I like I said, coming into the second half of the season, I liked to circle those teams that I thought got a little lucky, got a little unlucky based on runs scored, runs allowed. And I thought Cleveland was those teams that probably had a few more wins than they should have. And I thought Milwaukee's one of those teams that had a few less wins than they should have. So I'm not going to automatically fade or follow those teams, but I'm going to look for spots to do that. And I think this sets up nice because I like the fact that Milwaukee at home, much better at home than they play on the road, and Cleveland the same thing. Obviously plays better at home than on the road. That's most teams. But the fact that Cleveland's playing so well overall gives us a little bit of value on Milwaukee, not getting much at all for home field. I mean, it was a coin flip at most. I think we got it at even money, minus 101. Now they may be, I don't even know, minus 110 or so. But I like that also, that the recency bias with Cleveland having come in, won 5 straight, coming off a really tough series, and having a starter who's also coming off one of his best starts. He went a full 6 innings, only gave up 1 earned run. I think he's going to regress off a start like that. I thought Milwaukee at anything less than like minus 125 range was a decent spot for them to get that win at home against this good Cleveland team, but I think they are playing a little above their heads right now.
Are you surprised at all that this line is sitting in this pick'em range? We haven't seen the money flow for Milwaukee. Is that a Savali issue? I know he's not a pitcher starting pitcher that the betting markets seem to be enamored with this year.
I think that's what it is. I think it's nothing sexy about him. I'm looking at it. You got a guy that's 2-3 over his last 5. Nothing really jumping out. So and also let's not forget, with football now here, preseason football, I know it's preseason, not the regular season. I think everything takes a back seat to it. I mean, at least that's what I've seen in the back end, looking at some of these books. Like the preseason games are getting so much more action than a Major League Baseball game. So I think it may be a little bit of that too. Not much of the public speaking yet. I wouldn't be surprised, though, if you see Cleveland money come in from the betting public. That wouldn't scare me if I saw the line move a little towards that. But the last thing I wanted to add, be careful of the manipulation. I talked about it in basketball, and it's happening so much in baseball. Just look at those lines. Look at the sides and on the totals. They're betting it up when the limits are low, and then they're coming back 2x, 3x, 4x the other way. It's happening over and over and over and over again. So be careful following that early move. And that's what I talk about. If you miss it on a side that you like, sit back, because more times than not, there's going to be a buyback the other way, and you'll probably get that line again if you missed it on the move, because there's just so much two-way action, number one, because when the line moves, you're going to have a difference in opinion. But more importantly, the manipulation that's happening, I've never seen it this much. And I don't know why. Maybe it's because of the corporate books just making it harder on players to get down, sharp players. But they're really manipulating these numbers a lot lately.
Interesting. And of course, the limits, as you know, are a lot lower when they come out. So you can put a head fake and then come in heavier, as Johnny's saying, on the real line when it becomes worldwide and higher limits. So some great insight there.
Sorry, not to interrupt you, Steve. Boston, Baltimore yesterday. And I even had to buy it back for subscribers because I'm not going to roll the dice. Listen, when I see that happen and I could confirm it, I've done this long enough to know this was a manipulation. So I'm not going to just roll the dice and hope that we win the game for my subscribers. They're going to get pissed that they have to pay VIG. But I would much rather them pay VIG and get off the bet than have them just gamble when I'm not gambling. And that's what I did, because I saw that's exact. And they ended up winning. The right side won, and we would have lost those 3 units plus juice instead of just losing the juice. And sometimes it sucks having to do it. But if the situation changes, don't be afraid to change. You only have the info that's in front of you at that moment. But as the info changes, you got to be willing to change as well. That's what I think.
Yeah, like Reagan said, trust but verify, right? And that's a great segue. I was going to have you on the way out here. I was going to say, tell people about the Steam Room, tell them what you got going on WagerTalk.com, but you shouldn't just chase line moves, right? You've got to confirm, and this is something you've done for a long time.
No, in fact, I went broke chasing line moves back in the day multiple times. You can't. You're getting a different number. You're betting different games than they are. That's just what it ends up doing. I don't want to waste any more time. I've got a lot going on. Tomorrow we got the Steam Room, 10 a.m. Pacific time, 1 p.m. Eastern. I'll be going over all of UFC 305 card. I'm firing a 5% play. Right now, number 1 in profit in MMA. We're just crushing it. Like, the ROI is just ridiculous. Seeing it really clearly, feel really confident about this 305 card. And again, going to break a lot down in the Steam Room. I've been sick since returning from Florida, so I've had nothing to do but stay sick in the house in bed and read and catch up on football and UFC 305. So it's kind of been a blessing being under the weather, because I've been forced to just stay at home and study. So really looking forward for what's ahead. Join the Steam Room tomorrow. And if you're going to be betting UFC 305, you're going to want to check out what I have going on, because I really like that card a lot.
Yeah, and he's got some he's got a free boxing play up right now on his page as well. So check out his page for some free plays also. WagerTalk.com. Gianni the Greek, Vegas runner,
Thank
ace.
you.
Some great insight there. By the way, the live chat is lighting up. They love the Blackjack talk. Big Daddy, Mark, everyone. Andy Lang's in there loving it as well, even myself, Steve Merrill. So some fantastic insight. Thumbs up if you haven't already for this show. Click subscribe and hit that bell for instant alerts. Johnny joins us every Friday here on Wager Talk Today. And Teddy, we've got Carmine Bianco right around the corner. Talk some soccer, yet another sport here for the Friday shows. We head into the weekend. And you're going to diversify as well with a little NFL preseason. You know, we had such a great segment with Dave Mason for Bet Online yesterday that we carried over your big game breakdown for Friday. But don't you worry, it's a Saturday NFL game, Steelers and Bills. Battle of my two classmates, my friend, from William & Mary in the 90s, McDermott and Tomlin. God, what are you doing with this game, man? I'm on the edge of my seat.
So right now, looking at the Wager Talk Live odds screen, I'm seeing Pittsburgh in the 4.5/5.5 point favorite range. And yeah, I mean, really, the 4.5, I guess 5.5 across the board right now for the Steelers. There are 6 popping ups. I get it. When we look at Tomlin's track record, he's been outstanding in the preseason. Pittsburgh didn't play particularly well last week, to put it mildly, against Houston, down 17-0 in the half, made things interesting. And for Buffalo, their third-string quarterback, Shane Buechele, just got hurt last week, and they had to sign Ben DiNucci off the waiver wire. And Ben DiNucci is, in theory, supposed to be familiar with the Joe Brady system, which is similar to Sean Payton's system, which DiNucci played in when he was in Denver and Dallas. I don't want DiNucci. What I want is Buffalo in the first half. All right. Josh Allen, we got to have a sense of urgency right now. Sean McDermott, quote, after last week's game, our standard was not out there today. That's not how we play. If you had a blood pressure cuff on me during that game, it probably would have exploded. They had 11 penalties. I think 8 of them were pre-snap miscues, self-inflicted. Quote, we didn't control the line of scrimmage from the jump all the way down to one of the last series we had on offense, trying to get a first down on 3rd and 1 and can't get a yard. That's where the challenge comes in. We've got to embrace that challenge. We've got a lot of work to do. Urgency for Buffalo. Interest in Buffalo. Starting quarterback saying we're going to play. Head coach saying we're going to play. And it's certainly worth noting, last year, the Buffalo Bills, number 1 in net yardage in the preseason. In 22, similar story. 22, they were number 1 in net yards, outgaining foes by 90 yards a game. Last year was only outgaining foes by 85 yards per game. But there's not, McDermott's success in August isn't just luck. His teams come to play. And again, let's take DiNucci out of the equation for the second half. Not widely available yet. It will be between now and kickoff. But there are plus 3.5s for the Bills' first half available right now. I think it's a great bet at plus 3 or better. Buffalo, first half in Pittsburgh. There's your big game breakdown. Back to you, Mr. Merrill.
Love it. That over William & Mary alums, McDermott and Tomlin going at it tomorrow night on Saturday in Pittsburgh. And Pittsburgh, about a 5.5 point favorite, total 37.5. And Teddy thinks that line is too high. Take a look at the dog and maybe even the first half as well. All right, that's some American football. Let's talk international football now with Carmine Bianco. It's Prez free, Carm, the last couple of days, but we got to get a Canadian on. And you're my favorite Canadian. Don't tell the Prez. He's in the top 3 still.
He knows.
But we have some soccer to talk, man. And we got 2 different leagues. I mean, first of all, the big boys start this weekend over in England, correct?
Yeah, it's the kickoff of the Premier League. It actually kicks off today, and there is a free play video up at Wager Talk on the YouTube channel, and a free play loaded in the free play section, which is the exact same play as well too. So if you guys are looking for some action today in the Premier League, Manchester United versus Fulham, you can watch the video, and I've got one there for you. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. The top leagues in Europe are kicking off. We've got the Premier League, the Italian Serie A, and La Liga kicked off, and we got France League One and Bundesliga as well too. So the 5 big leagues are going, and which means for my clients, they know that the volume kind of kicks it up. I'm a little cautious early on, but I really kick it up in the first month because there's a lot of good spots that you can find with these teams coming out of obviously the summer break, some of the international duty, and of course the transfer windows where teams, the makeup and look of teams have changed greatly. And then Steve, we have it seems like tournament season in the summer has gone on forever. We have the quarterfinals of the Leagues Cup with all the MLS teams and the Liga MX teams from Mexico, and we're down to the final 8 teams. So I'm going to give you guys a free play in that one as well.
Yeah, so let's save the Leagues Cup here for the way out. You can look at Colorado and Club America. Give us something, though, in this EPL opening weekend, maybe for this weekend over there in England.
Yeah, so I'm going to look at this first one is the Arsenal Wolverhampton game, and this is one in which I've taken 2 positions on these teams and how they're going to fare this year. Arsenal have had back-to-back fantastic seasons. Unfortunately, you look at last season, they took the race right down to the final weekend of the season, with Manchester City eventually winning the title. I like plus money this year on Arsenal to win the title. Now, a lot of people are going to say, are you kidding me? Are you saying you are going to take Arsenal because it's a Man City, a stacked team? But a little bit, you might see just a little bit of regression from the Manchester United team. I'm talking about the title before I get into this game very quickly. And then there's something looming large in the Premier League, whether you want to believe it or not, Man City fans, is that they face 115 different charges with the fair play rules, and they could be docked points. That won't happen until early 2025, but we saw it happen to Everton last year. They were docked 10 points. If you dock any points from Man City this season and Arsenal plays like they did last season, they're going to win by default unless Liverpool can have a fantastic season. Now you look at this game, and you look at the line, and this line it's a huge line. It's unbettable on the money line. It's minus 650 on Arsenal right now. They're getting all the money in. It's because they've had fantastic starts the last two seasons. You go 2 seasons back, and they finished their first 30 days. There were 5 wins and 1 loss in their first 6 games out of the gates. Last year, 5 wins, 1 draw out of the gates. It's a quick starting team. Mikel Arteta has really got this team playing some fabulous football. And a couple additions to this team. They're healthy going into this season, and they're playing extremely well. You've got Wolves, and that's another position I've taken. This is a team that finished 14th or 15th last season. They lose Pedro Neto. He's no longer on the team, so that hurts their offense somewhat. And they haven't really brought in any players to fill the voids. This is a team that I think is going to regress and is likely at the end of the season going to be in that relegation battle in one of those 18, 19, or 20th spots and could get sent down to the championship. I just don't see how this team competes this year. And out of the gate, I can't see them competing. Now, how do you play this? You can look at the goal line. The goal line is pretty high at -2, -2.25. Arsenal to win to nil, which means Arsenal wins the game and does not allow a goal, is -150. And Arsenal at home are a heavy possession team, so it limits the amount of chances that Wolves are going to have. Wolves struggled to score against the top 4 teams last season, and it's going to happen again this year and right out of the gate. One way of looking at this, though, is, and I always talk about saving a little bit of juice where you can. Because of the fact that Arsenal win to nil is -150, you can take the Wolves team total under half a goal, and it's -140. Now, you might not think there's a big difference, but you save 10 cents vig on a play throughout the year, and it does wonders for your bankroll. How have these two teams fared the last 3 years? Arsenal has completed the double in each of the 3 years. Completing the double means they've won both home and away game fixtures in each season the last 3 years. A 6-0 run for them. It continues on Saturday morning. Arsenal win to nil, but the better option here is just take Wolves team total, save 10 cents juice, and take under half a goal, -140.
Great breakdown, Carmine. Although I got to say, you look more like Mr. Clean today than any time that I've ever seen before. You just have that perfect Mr. Clean look this morning.
I shaved before the show, Teddy.
Yeah. It looks sharp, dude. You look sharp as hell. I want to ask you, though, you said something that stood out to me. You said the chalk here is unbettable. You can't lay -650. You can't lay $6. Why not? If they're going to win, if you're confident that this team's going to win, why wouldn't you say, yeah, it's okay to lay minus $6 here. This team's going to win. Can there be value ever with a $5 or $6 favorite?
Some fair better in that spot, Teddy. I don't normally lay. I would rather lay a handicap with the game than lay the minus 650. I just think that if you lose one of 10 games, you're still eking out a profit. But if you lose that one early on, it's obviously detrimental to your bankroll. And if you can't practice proper bankroll management, you find yourself trying to get that money back quicker than you should be, and you get into I think you get into a bigger hole. There's some guys, and there's some WagerTalk guys who, I'm not saying lane minus 650, but I'll go to hockey for instance. Brian Leonard can find plays and has a very high hit rate on finding plays where he thinks minus 200 has value, because the line should be at minus 250, 260, and he hits regular year in and year out. Guys can do that. I can't, so I stay away from it.
That's interesting, Carm, because I do the baseball show with Brian on Tuesdays and Fridays each week. Just did it earlier today, and he's almost a dog guy. He's always looking for dogs in baseball. So it's interesting. It shows once again how every sport is different, even with their money line sports, soccer, hockey, baseball, and of course, Carmine Bianco. He's Canadian, so he has to handicap hockey. He does quite a good job with that. It's right around the corner here in a couple months. Carm, let's stick with soccer while we've got you here on the way out. And you mentioned the League Cup's quarters finals, and kind of explain how that works again. And let's look at a game here as we're in the semifinals, I believe.
So yeah, we are into the quarterfinals now. Eight teams left. All 4 games go on Saturday evening. So I'll have a card up, and this is going to be another one of my client plays. So the last 2 weeks on the show on Fridays, I've given you guys a couple soccer plays. We've swept the last couple of weeks. I think even going back 3 weeks. So we're going to try and do it again this week with these 2 plays on the weekend. This is one, the Colorado Rapid versus Club America, one of the biggest names and biggest teams in Mexico. And this game is being played at Dignity Health Sports Park in Carson, California. It's where they played, I think, 2 of their games thus far. They had a bye. Club America had a bye into the knockout stages, so they didn't have to go through the group stages like Colorado did. But they scheduled a couple of friendlies against Chelsea and against Aston Villa, who were in the U.S. playing their summer schedule, and they spaced the games apart, so they didn't have that long layoff that a lot of the Mexican teams that struggled early on in this tournament had, of 9, 10, 11 days off in between games. So they came in and they've made quick work of their 2 opponents. Last time out, St. Louis beating them 4-2. They're just playing some great possession ball right now. And although Colorado's playing some great football as well too, their 4 games, 3 of them came at home at Dick's Sporting in Colorado, and they won those 3 games. The only time they had to venture away from home, they lost 4-0 at Portland. They're not as good a road team as they are at home. Their form at home, they just played so well at home. On the road, even in MLS action, I think in 13 games, they've only won 4 of their 13 away games, 7 losses there as well too. This is a game where the line is probably about 30 cents lower than I feel. I felt this line should have come out about 165, 170, came out at 119, 120, and it's steamed to about 129 right now. And I think it'll still go a little higher on game day, but the Club America minus 129, I think, is the right play here.
Carmine Bianco, number 1 in the regular season at WagerTalk in NFL. Last year had better than 60% for the full season. He's on a 70% run with his soccer totals. MLS last 30 days, over 60%. Sounds like you run pretty good, my friend. What do you have going this weekend?
Yeah, so full cards is 4 plays up in the MLS. 4 plays up in the Premier League. The Italian season starts as well too, and I have 1 play up right now. I'd say 5% play that goes on Saturday as well too. I'll have a Leagues Cup card going as well too, and then full soccer on Sunday as well too. So there's plenty of action and some plays today, so that buy 3 days, get 7 days for the price of 3 is a great deal because you'll get all of those plays, including that 5% play that normally goes for $35. Teddy, I'm looking forward to the Italian season as well too. It's treated me well since starting soccer here at WagerTalk back in 2015, 2016. And it's funny, just quickly, Teddy, it is in Italy right now. It's Ferragosto. For the Italians out there, they know what that means. It's the festival, the middle of August. Everything is closed, Teddy. From the 15th, 16th, 17th. You get into a car accident, do not go to the hospital. The hospital's closed. The doctors are at the beach. You get shot, you're going to die. There's no two ways about it. Everything is closed in Italy for Ferragosto. So I'm glad the stadiums are open. We've got soccer this weekend.
Hospitals are closed. Stadiums are open. They've got their priorities in order when it comes to soccer over there in Europe in general. So it's good stuff. Carmine Bianco, a little travel advisory as well from him here on WagerTalk TV. And once again, that 3 days gets 7, buy 3, get 7 applies to everybody. No promo code needed. Carmine Bianco, Andy Lang, Teddy covers, myself, Steve Merrill, and every other capper at WagerTalk.com. Don't forget free plays from numerous cappers as well. I've got a free baseball play up for tonight. I've also won 5 of my 6 free baseball plays over the last week, so you might want to check out those strong opinions. They're just a bit outside from making the cut. Best bets, a perfect 3-0 sweep the last 2 nights. I've got a strong steamroller tonight. And if you want more baseball insight, once again, MLB First Pitch was on at 11 a.m. Eastern today. Watch that archived version for a breakdown of almost every game on the board today in baseball. So hit subscribe and click that bell for instant alerts. Thumbs up, like, and comment below. We read the comments and we reply back. Prez is scheduled to be back on Monday. Teddy, enjoy. Take us home.
Yeah, it should be a lot of fun. And I always enjoy a Bob Uecker reference when we can get it. That's going to wrap it for the week at WagerTalk today. Of course, we do WagerTalk Last Call Saturdays at what is 8 a.m. Pacific time, 11 o'clock Eastern time. But Prez and I will be back on Monday with another edition. Between now and then, enjoy the games and best of luck with all your bets.